All right, so we've got a legal saga that spans decades, involves two multi-million-dollar verdicts, and believe it or not, it's still not over. Today, we are going to untangle the really complex and, let's be honest, often confusing legal battle between the writer E. Jean Carroll and former President Donald Trump. Let's just dive right in.
$83.3 million. This is the number at the absolute heart of this entire story. Just recently, a federal appeals court gave its official stamp of approval, upholding this massive defamation judgment against Donald Trump. And look, the court's decision wasn't just unanimous, their reasoning was, well, pretty blunt. The court called the facts of the case extraordinary and egregious. Now that is some seriously strong language. That phrase alone tells you pretty much everything you need to know about why they were okay with such a staggering amount of money. It really sets the stage for the whole story of how we even got to this point. So, how did we get here? To really get a handle on this verdict, you've got to understand that it's not the result of just one trial. Nope, it's actually the result of two. Okay, so the story kicks off with an alleged assault way back in 1996. Fast forward decades to 2019, and Carroll goes public. Trump's very forceful denial then sparks her first lawsuit. Let's just call it Carroll I to keep things simple. But here's where it gets kind of tricky. A second lawsuit, Carroll II, actually went to trial first. In 2023, a jury found Trump liable for sexual abuse and awarded Carroll $5 million. That verdict then set the stage for the original case, Carroll I, to finally go to trial, which is what led to the $83.3 million verdict we're all talking about today. And this brings us to one of the biggest points of confusion for a lot of people. Why on earth were there two separate trials? It all boils down to when Trump made the statements that were considered defamatory. Okay, so here's the breakdown. The first trial to actually finish up, Carroll II, that one covered both the sexual abuse claim and defamatory statements from 2022. The result? A $5 million award. Now the second trial, Carroll I, that one focused only on the things Trump said back in 2019. And here's the real kicker. Because that first jury had already decided he was liable for the underlying act, this second jury's only job was to figure out the damages for that initial defamation, and they landed on $83.3 million. And that, of course, brings us to the big, flashing question that everyone has been asking ever since that huge verdict came down.
Right? Why so much money? Well, the answer isn't just about paying Carroll back for the damage to her reputation. The jury actually split the award into two very, very different categories.
So the jury broke this down into two distinct parts. $18.3 million was for what we call compensatory damages. Basically, money to cover the harm to her career, her reputation, and her emotional pain. But the huge majority of it, a whopping $65 million, that was for something else entirely, punitive damages. So what are punitive damages? Well, the key thing to know is they aren't about making the victim whole again. They are specifically designed to punish the defendant and, this is critical, to stop them from ever doing the same thing again. The jury decided that Trump's conduct was so malicious that it deserved a massive financial penalty. And that was the explicit goal. No beating around the bush. Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, told the jury straight up that the award should be high enough to, in her exact words, make him stop. That $65 million figure, that was the jury's answer to her request. So, now that the appeals court has backed up that jury's decision, the question becomes, what happens next? Has this whole thing finally reached an end? Well, not quite. For E. Jean Carroll's legal team, this ruling is the ultimate vindication. Roberta Kaplan's statement frames it as a definitive win for the truth, saying the court flat out affirmed that Carroll was telling the truth and Trump was not.
But then you look at the statement from Trump's legal team and you see a totally different narrative. They're continuing to frame the entire case not as a legal issue, but as a political witch hunt. They're calling for an end to what they call the political weaponization of our justice system.
So what can we actually expect to see next? Well, the money itself is secure for now. It's covered by a bond for over $91 million. Trump's team could try to appeal to the Supreme Court, but honestly, it's a real long shot that the court would even take the case. And then there's this, which is pretty astonishing. Carroll's lawyers have warned that if the defamatory statements keep coming, they could file a third lawsuit. Some experts are even talking about a court-issued gag order to just finally put a stop to the public comments. And all of that leaves us with this one final central question. The legal system used one of the most powerful tools it has, a gigantic financial penalty designed to punish and to deter. So if nearly $90 million isn't enough to stop the behavior that sparked these lawsuits in the first place, what is? It's a question that goes way beyond this specific case and really makes you think about the limits of our legal system in this deeply polarized era we're living in.